attracted to Shlomo because he taught experientially. He would always say, open your heart. So it's not just a mental, intellectual exercise, but it's something that we can experience. So in my study of Eitz Chaim, in my limited study of Eitz Chaim and Shari Kedusha, which deals more with the meditation and the purification of the person, what I like, the meditation, is when we take some of these ideas and we weave them into meditation so that we can contemplate them and be with them and feel them, and then they impact. If you take the practice even of working with the letters of God's name, the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, use this in meditation. In my books I have like maybe 20 to 30 different meditation practices with the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Take on a meditation practice along with the study and see how that will open you to really change. Because I also think that you can't really understand the Kabbalah unless you do change. That the Kabbalah, I remember a newspaper reporter once asked me, he said, aren't you upset that Madonna is, or learning the Kabbalah? I said, well, Kabbalah has a certain inner purity that only people who are on a certain level will she open herself to. So that we always have to work on the refinement of our midot and meditation and prayer and learning all together, and then there's the transformation of the whole person.
Let me ask another question, then you can add.
You're David Solomon.
What?
You're David Solomon has to say.
Yeah, we will. He's getting the mic next, but we're gonna give him another question. Plus, we'll answer the earlier question, just for the sake of covering more questions. This is one specifically for David, even though it doesn't have. It's everything but your name on it. Does one need to study Aramaic as well as Hebrew? And what are the 3 Hebrew root letters? Okay, now I think you know why. Give me this, Dan.
Thank you.
Are you okay? I'm going to... there's a famous Mishnah that I'm sure you're all aware of, that one of the signs of a golem is that anyone who speaks in front of anyone who's greater than them in wisdom or in number, and also anyone who answers the last question first and the first question last. So I'm going to transgress on both of those injunctions, and I'm going to talk about, just wanting to add to what Mindy was saying, because and what Rabbi Citron was saying, that the greatest exponent of these big complex Kabbalistic meditations called the Kavanot, where Kabbalists are trying to effect things in themselves and the world by meditating on the Sfirot and on the Partzufim and affect these changes. The greatest exponent of them was a Kabbalist called Rav Shalom Sharabi, otherwise known as the Rashash, lived in Yemen and in Jerusalem in the 18th century. Big school of thought. It's not just like one, Kabbalistic dude sitting around in a hut. I mean, we're talking, there are entire yeshivot today that are entirely devoted to mastering these techniques. But we have a text that was recently revealed of the son of the Rashash, where they asked him and they said, can you shed any light on what your dad was actually doing with these Kabbalah? Like, okay, so they're all written out what you're meant to meditate, but what does it mean to meditate on them? What are you actually doing? He goes, I've got no idea. And my father once told me that he has no idea. It's the most astonishing text. I mean, he said, look, my father has worked out for himself what that might mean, but he's not prepared to tell other people what it is that he's actually doing, because every person, in a sense, needs to develop their own level of negotiation with the divine and their negotiation with the meditative material. The famous Kabbalist Naftali Bachrach and Emek HaMelech writes that the whole purpose of Sod, of the level of mystery in the world, are the very Chidushim, not the ones that you learn, but the ones that you yourself produce And your soul is going to be held accountable. And they're going to devote 3 days in Gan Eden, where everybody in Gan Eden, writes Bakra, is going to learn your Torah. So your Chidushim are the key to your whole mystical exercise. Now, that brings me then to this. I'm banging on about this, and those of you who came to my talks know this, that people need to stop going to classes and start taking responsibility for their own spiritual journey. That might mean going to classes, but don't go to classes to learn what other people have to say about Kabbalah. Go to places which give you the tools that you can learn to directly access it. You don't need to learn Aramaic. Aramaic is a very big word. It's a big language. Once you start involving yourself in ideas and texts, we are, after all, people of the book, you will start to pick up enough Aramaic that you need. The real key is the language of your soul. Hebrew is the purest means that we have by which to express concepts of God. And Hebrew is not difficult, it's just different. I mean, there are 2-year-olds in Israel running around speaking Hebrew. I'm asked here about the concept of 3-letter roots. It's very, very simple. If you took any of the 22 letters at random almost, they create some Hebrew root. All verbs in Hebrew work according to 3-letter roots.
Which could be reduced to 2.
Which can be reduced to 2, which can be reduced to 1, as we discussed there. In the Middle Ages, there were people, drawing swords against each other, having these big grammatical debates. But mystically, actually, the number 3 works well for us, because we have Rosh, Toch, and Sof. We have beginning, we have middle, we have end. And in fact, the proto-verb of all verbs in Hebrew grammar, Pei Ayin Lamed, which actually means the concept of action, if you think about it, is very, very Lurianic. Pei Ayin Lamed.
Mouth, eye, ear.
I deliberately didn't translate that because I want to be. As I said earlier today, Hebrew is to Kabbalah like mathematics is to physics. It would be disingenuous of me not to hide that fact. Translations are brilliant, but you will start with the Hebrew alphabet, you will end with the Hebrew alphabet. Hebrew, we are born into a linguistic universe that is expressed through Hebrew. Once you know Hebrew, and I'm going to tie in these 2 questions together, my earlier comments on this, we have no greater kavanah in the world today, despite the books and books written on deep, mystical, Lurianic meditations. We have no greater kavanah in prayer today than simply understanding the meaning, the simple meaning of the words. If you stand before God and you say the Amidah and you actually concentrate on the simple meaning of the words, spirituality will soak through you like a shock wave. You will go trembling at the knees when you realize the power of what you're saying. So, in a sense, we have no greater Kabbalistic techniques than that. But there are many, many ways in which the Ari has contributed to our understanding of why we're doing these things. On that I'm going to cut off because question and answer, but it's very, very important.